Hello guys, it's Chumma here doing another Bakugan video, this time a Bakugan discussion on Bakugan Armors. I just want to talk a little bit about what if Bakugan Armors continued, what would that look like. I will say this will be a very conceptual video as unfortunately I do not have the funds to commission people to model or draw all of these things out, nor do I have the talent to do so myself. So descriptions will have to do, unfortunately, but I will describe how I would sort of imagine a Bakugan Armors continuing as a proper first season. Beyond that gets a little bit tricky. I feel like then you start looking at new systems or just some other change to the armor system that I really couldn't predict or properly conceptualize. I mean, obviously I can come up with my own unique system, but I feel like it wouldn't be correct, so I'm just going to leave it to this hypothetical first season. And most of this video will just be talking about the skill arm realistically. I feel like that's the most interesting part, because otherwise I would need descriptions of what each and every new sort of Bakugan will look like, a new name, a new theme. Again, that's just something I don't really want to do if I don't have any visuals for it, so I'm just going to leave that alone. A couple things I will note. Had Bakugan Armors continued, I imagine we would get more things like Kappa Kodaku, where you just have, no soul pieces, just the arms that take up the slots for the soul pieces. Probably more stuff like that. Also, maybe some asymmetrical designs, some arms that are not the same as one another, so they're not just mirrored, they are fully unique arms from one another. Also, I imagine G-Power would probably climb further. I wouldn't want to get too high though. Like 820G's max, that still feels a little higher than it should, but if Bakugan Armor was a full season, I imagine it'd probably get a bit higher, so that's where I would hope it'd cap off. But anyways, let's just go ahead and talk about these skill arms, because there's a lot here. When thinking about this, I wasn't sure how many skill arms to come up with. I was just thinking maybe to do a couple, but ultimately I decided to make that the bulk of the video because there's just not much else I could really do here. Again, no real visuals, so I feel like there should be enough for a full line. So I have 7 already. I came up with 15 new ones. That gives us 22 total skill arms. That should be enough for a first season, which would presumably go from spring of 2014 through the start of 2015. Had this actually happened. Now, some of these are things that I can actually see happening. Others are maybe a bit more up in the air, but again, it's hard to imagine what Sega Toys would have done, what they would have cooked up had they continued Armors, because it's likely they would have continued had it done better. I don't imagine like an entirely new system, promote it, and then just stop after 7 releases because they just felt like it, so this is sort of just a mix of what I think they could have done and then trying to fill in some gaps with my own ideas here. So the easiest place to start is probably with gate card manipulators. So what I mean by that is just kind of Bakugan that have to do with gate card bonuses. We first have plus wind on Shippuzeku, which gives you the Ventus gate bonus in addition to your attribute arm, and obviously in stock that just means Shippuzeku gets it twice, but in customs you can use a different attribute arm and then also get the Ventus bonus. And plus light on Ogan Habo here is the same, but for chaos. And then you have Ikitosen right here, which has ×2, and that just doubles whatever attribute arm you already have. Now I mentioned coming up with 15 different skills. We can get 5 out of the way very quickly. 4 of them are plus fire, plus water, plus earth, and plus dark. Basically just the plus abilities for the other attributes. I think these should be a bit better physically, closer to something like Ogan Habo rather than, these two, to have some credence over free select. We'll get to that in a minute though. The 5th plus ability though is plus glow. Plus glow basically just add the highlighted G-Power bonus you find on different cards. On Armors gate cards in particular, this is usually the highest. But as Armors continued, I imagine we'd probably get more gate cards, and not all these would be like that. Of course, you'd want some with 0 highlighted to make plus glow risky, but of course something you could use in a bit of a different way, so you could maybe have different attributes going. You're definitely rolling the dice a bit more with this one, but I think, again, it could be a very interesting concept. Alright, let's go ahead and have the free select discussion now. So free select is kind of the other gate card manipulator. This one allows you to freely choose any gate bonus as a second gate bonus. Obviously this is extremely overpowered, and why I'd want other more restricted abilities like this to have better physical parts. That said, I think free select needs to be nerfed somehow because it's just too strong. Now you could just straight up rewrite the rule. Basically, free select just overrides your attribute arm and you only get the 1 bonus, but you could choose anything, which is still powerful, but I feel like that takes away from what free select is, and I think we could also introduce new armor abilities that would make it not so dominant. So my compromise would basically be to introduce a new rule for the other gate card manipulators. This rule would basically give them priority. So, for example, if you have a Bakugan with plus wind, for example, Ventus is locked. So free select cannot choose Ventus because that gets priority. That would work with any other attribute-based skill arm like that. Also plus glow would be like that. The highlighted bonus is off limits. If facing a Bakugan that does not have one of these skill arms, free select just works as is. But this would give them a bit more power because on specific gate cards that could actually work in their favor if something's very high up, and maybe free select would want that, but now it can't have it. It's the only way to really nerf it, I think, in a way that makes sense, that actually keeps the ability intact, but again, still gives a nerf, and genuine counterplay to other skill arms. Free select is still definitely better than them overall, but if you give them a bit more physicality and at least some way to counter free select, I think that makes them a lot better and at least worth using, and free select becomes a bit more manageable. Now for the next ability, it's sort of just a mirror of Rekahiri's ability plus 100, that is minus 100. You just subtract 100 Gs from your opponent, that's literally it. Now you might be asking, isn't that basically just plus 100, except instead of me getting the bonus, they lose it? Kind of. But if you're trying to make a full line, there's going to be some similar abilities, so I think this is fair enough. It's interesting. It could be good for a potential foil character even, if this actually had like a proper manga or something. But I think it works fine regardless. Now we have something a little different. This will account for the next 3 abilities, and we have a Gold Force, Silver Force, and Copper Force. So these 3 abilities would be quite interesting. They have to do with gate cards, but also soul pieces. So when looking at different metal soul pieces, some of them are silver, others are gold. I think there should also be copper soul pieces introduced at some point in this line as well. And that would give you 3 main colors of soul pieces. You could of course have others, but they would be specifically for this. That all tied to the gate cards. How this would work is you get plus 50 Gs for each matching soul piece. So if you have both matching soul pieces with this ability, you get plus 100 Gs. So it's basically just plus 100 but with extra steps. That said, there is more to this. Because of that, I would want them to be weaker than plus 100 physically, so plus 100 has better offense than these. These would just kind of be okay pieces, more so strictly for G-power battling, while plus 100 is just generally stronger physically, as I said. And that's because the second ability matches up with different gate cards. If you land on your corresponding gate card, you get plus 150 Gs, and that stacks onto the other plus 100, so it's plus 250 Gs. That could definitely harm free select pretty badly right there, while also being a massive problem for a lot of other Bakugan, but you only have a 1/3 chance of actually getting it because of the gate cards. Of course, you'd want to do this strategically with your own gate cards. You could gamble a bit on other opponents' gate cards. However, you still have the soul piece mechanic, that way you still have a plus 100, so you're at least still going in somewhat prepared, even if it's not perfect. And again, this would go for gold, silver, and copper, 1 of each. You want to make sure these are consistent. So now we have 9 abilities done with, and these are all of the ones that I felt like were pretty easy. Now we have to do 6 more. These are a bit more complicated, and these are the ones where I really try to use my own mind here to figure out some genuinely new abilities that aren't necessarily just G-power based entirely. So for the first of these, we have one that is kind of G-power based, but not entirely. That is Reversal. Reversal, it's just a low G-wins ability. That's it. This would be very powerful. I mean, having a low G-win Bakugan with just an ability, no cards needed, that is extremely powerful. But considering the scope of G-power battlers and armors, I feel like not having a G-power bonus is extremely risky. So having something like this could easily give someone a win if they aren't using as many G-power battling abilities. I think this works well. It's a decent balancing mechanic, I think. Because now you run the risk of running into low G Bakugan when you're trying to get like 1100 Gs or something, so that could be a massive problem. But also, you could of course play mind games and try to potentially bait an opponent onto a card that gives them a very high gate bonus, while your Bakugan really doesn't do a whole lot with that, and then you can win the low G battle. As it applies to anyone, not just its own Bakugan, even though that's what it's designed to do, it would still work pretty well, I think. And considering just how Armors is, I feel like you're going to have a lot of weird stuff, and I think this is just one of them. The next ability is Skill Break. Skill Break just basically nullifies your opponent's skill. That's it. So this of course activates when you get into a G-power battle, and once you do, they can't do anything. So it's just the printed G-power, the bonuses on the card, and any potential text on the card. That's it. It's just a classic G-power battle. Nothing else, no abilities, so again, a nullification ability just seems like something that would eventually happen, so I included it here. Next up we have Lock. Lock is sort of a counterpart to this, and Lock just means you do not flip the gate card. So once you get into a G-power battle, it's just printed G-powers, and that's really it. Of course there could be certain armor abilities that could come into play here, such as plus 100, that'd be huge in this case, but you don't flip the gate card. It's another way to shut down a lot of these gate card based skills, but in this case other skills can still be used, and there's just no bonuses or text from the card at all. It's definitely a much different ability in play, but it does sound kind of similar. And again, I feel like it being somewhat of a nullification ability makes sense. I feel like there'd be more of these, again, if we had a proper line, so I decided to include another one. Next up we have Flee. Flee allows you to move to an unoccupied gate card. That's all there is to it. This can just happen whenever you want. So once you stand your Bakugan, it doesn't matter if you're in a G-Power battle or not. You stand, you can just move to any unoccupied gate card you want. I think it'd be fairly interesting. Also, there probably have to be some kind of ruling on how you place your Bakugan. I imagine that would be a bit awkward since position does matter in armors and just Japanese Bakugan in general. But if that's something that does need to be enforced, you could always just use like this sort of circle area. You have to place it like in there, for example. I think that'd be a fair rule, assuming that'd be an issue. And I imagine it probably would, because otherwise people will probably just use it to block cards or go further back for a double stand or something. So that'd be done to sort of avoid positional advantage. Obviously you have a little bit of room there, but you can't use the edges of the card to your advantage entirely. As for the second to last ability, we have Magnetism. Magnetism can pull opponents into G-Power battles. So there was actually a misconception with Hadokayo's ability for the longest time. So how Blowaway works is that once it stands, you just point to one of your opponent's Bakugan it stood and you could just force it back to their hand. But for a long time, a lot of people just seemed to think that you could just put yourself into a G-Power battle, as in just pick up your Bakugan, put it onto a card with an opponent there. And while I get the point of this, it's always been a very awkward ability because of how Armors works. Obviously, there's a lot of G-Power based skills, and having a skill that does that means you don't have one like that, so it's going to be a lot harder to win a battle like that. So I decided to kind of rework it and use it in this way, plus I just like abilities that kind of move things in the card, that's why I like Overraid so much. Unfortunately, I didn't get to make another ability like Overraid, since I think moving a card around on the field is sort of just a one-off thing for Overraid, but anyway. The reason why I think Magnetism would work a lot better than the kind of original false version of Blowaway is because it gives you more control. The opponent's Bakugan is brought to your card, so you can actually set up, and if it's on your own card, you have knowledge of that gate card. You're not just going in, hoping that your opponent was on one of your cards. You get more control in this circumstance here. And it can also be used for positional advantage. You stand this Bakugan on a card, you know your own setup, you win the card, and then maybe you free up a space for something like O-Raid, for example. I think there's a lot you could do with something like that, and I think it works a lot better when you have more control rather than going into a battle. As for the last ability, this one is a very, very simple one, but I think it'd be kind of funny, and that is Mirror. Mirror just copy skills, that's all it is. It's a mimic ability. I feel like this would be a fun one. You could just do like a double Blowaway, for example, which would be really funny, although you need to be on the same card for that to happen. So you technically couldn't copy like every single skill, I guess, because O-Raids typically just use, independently of anything. But things like plus 100, minus 100, any of the gate card based ones, the 3 specific card based ones, all of these would basically just become worthless because your opponent gets them as well. It's somewhat of a nullification ability, but also not. It's just a weird one, but I feel like a mimic ability is just another really obvious one that I could see them going for. But anyways, that's really about it. That's 15 new abilities. Again, a lot of them are pretty easy, I think. I just wanted to think of a full line. I think 22 total abilities is pretty solid. Most of them will be G-Power based, as, 5 of the 7 we have are G-Power based, that's why there's such a big focus on them, but I still want to give some other unique ones. Wanted to give some nullifications though, because I think it's just interesting. There's a lot of steps you could do here. I thought about having a whole section to talking about how you'd make a deck with some of these, but the more I thought about it though, that would just take way too long to try and do. There are so many potential setups you could make here, and I feel like just sitting down to make a video on it wouldn't really do it justice. That'd need like a whole series of videos, I feel like, and I'm not going to be doing all that because they don't exist. If there's a chance for them to exist or something, then I would reconsider it, but that's just not possible, so unfortunately I'll just leave that to float around in the void, I guess. But anyways, that's really everything for this video. Just thought it'd be a fun topic to talk about, because Armors is just such a small line. Really wish there was more, so I figured I'll just give some more concepts. But anyway, that's all, so thanks for watching, and bye-bye.